everybody. Welcome to a really special episode of Android Faithful. Today, we have a very exclusive interview with Chief Product Officer of Google Home and Nest, Anish Katukaran. Anish is going to talk to me and Mishaal, who's right over here. Hi, Mishaal.
Hey, Flo. I'm glad to be here and so glad to finally hear all the things rolling out from Google's Nest and Home divisions with Gemini. I've been waiting so long. Because for the longest time, you got the Google Home devices. Pretty much my Nest display has been a glorified kitchen timer, alarm, and weather bot. And that's it. I've not asked there anything else. Anytime I want to ask you something more complex, I wait for when I have an opportunity to pick up my phone. Because I don't trust it to be able to answer anything more complex than those three things. So I'm so glad to finally get Gemini on these devices.
I've been having kind of a similar experience, and I'm looking forward to talking to Anish to see what he's got to say for himself and the Google Home team. So let's get into it. All right, everybody. We are here with Anish Katukaran. He is the Chief Product Officer of Google Home and Nest. It's been a really big week, and we've got a lot of questions to ask Anish about what is happening to our smart home. So I think, first of all, Anish, I just want to say congrats on the product launch. This was a really big week. I actually, now that I've seen the news, I realize how big this is. I think just sort of talking about it didn't really bring to mind how explosive this was going to be for the ecosystem. I kind of want to ask, before we get into it, can you give us a little bit of behind the scenes for us, kind of share what your journey was like bringing Gemini to the home?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. Obviously, I've read a lot of the stuff that you guys have written in the past, so finally great to put a face to the names and chat with you guys. And you're right that it's been a big week. And maybe the way that I would frame it is this week is sort of the culmination of a couple years worth of work, right? And so it's many large efforts internally that have finally converged towards this moment, and we're just getting started, right? Of course, things are still rolling out and things like that, but we're really, really, really excited. To recap, probably the thing that underpins everything that we were announcing this week was Gemini for Home, right? That's our new intelligence in the home. It's going to replace the Google Assistant. It's going to supercharge your other devices. Really, really excited about that. But it's also sort of combined with, we redesigned the home app for a bunch of different reasons, but one big part was to sort of give you quick access to Gemini for Home. We did a whole sort of portfolio refresh on a lot of our devices and hardware, both from Nest with our flagships as well as some partner devices as well, and we rolled out Google Home Premium. So lots of good stuff. What has it been like? Wow, it's been a journey. I get the awesome role of being able to talk about the work the team has done, but there's a whole army of folks behind me that have been working on this for, a few years in many cases. So it's been really gratifying to see it received pretty well. I think the big sentiment now, people are asking, can I get my hands on it? Because we're still rolling it out. It's in early access parts of it. So people are very anxiously waiting to just get their hands on it and start trying it. So that's probably the biggest sentiment I'm taking away from everything going on right now.
And yeah, Anish, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. When, I write for Android Authority, prior to the launch of Gemini for Home, we ran a poll actually that asked our readers what they were most excited about when it came to this Google Home revamp. And the vast majority of people said that they were really looking forward to Gemini replacing Google Assistant. However, we also had a lot of people who commented saying that they're kind of done trusting Google when it comes to smart home products, citing a variety of things like fear of product abandonment, the degrading software performance on their existing smart home devices, or just Gemini, in their minds, making basic controls worse on their smartphones and other devices. So I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts. What do you have to say to those users who are skeptical of the new Google Home? Why should these consumers trust Google once again with controlling their smart home?
Yeah, listen, there's a lot to unpack with what you said there, right? There's some parts of it are related to the intelligence that you speak to when you're talking to speakers and displays. Maybe some parts of what you were just referring to were broader sort of hardware related things within the smart home. Some of it was related to the app. So maybe just to unpack all of those in a little bit of detail. Maybe one of the biggest questions here is, are we as Google committed to the home, like, maybe that's one of the underpinnings here. And hopefully not just with this moment, but everything you've seen, over the last few months, we've been sort of increasing our release cadence. Hopefully our ecosystem is starting to see, we are definitively committed. We love this space. We continue to build. We're really excited to build hardware. With that being said, like, smart home is tough, right? Like, I think a lot of folks understand this. Like, the smart home space has, rolled out with a sort of big bang in the 2015, 2016 time horizon with the last generation of AI assistants. I thought there was a lot of excitement there. We sort of showcased a lot of innovation of what was possible. And then it's somewhat plateaued, right? Like, if you sort of zoom out, it's kind of been a little bit stagnant over the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that was the sort of realization that the last generation of AI was just not as capable. Like, the reality and the vision had a bit of a divide. And so I think part of why I'm so excited now is, since the advent of Gemini and language models more generally, we think we actually have now the underlying intelligence to make the entire home a lot smarter. And so that's what I think is most promising about this wave of AI. Now, on the comment and the somewhat fair criticism about, should you trust us? Listen, I don't think trust is built in a single moment, for what it's worth. I think we have to re-earn any trust that we've lost over time. There's a few things that I would point to that I hope people are taking away. Like, when we announced Gemini for Home, we made it very clear, before we go and convince you to go and buy a new device to interact with Gemini for Home, like a new speaker, we're going to first focus on our existing devices. So I think we've said, publicly, we're going to bring Gemini for Home to every speaker, every smart display, every camera, and every doorbell that we've made in the last decade. And if anything, like, it took a lot more work to make that happen, right? Like, we could have probably taken the easier path. But for me, that's one way to convey our commitment to the users that have been on this journey with us for a long time. Now, we have had to make some harder decisions. Maybe you're referring to some of our oldest devices. If you look at it, some of the oldest devices that we've had, like our thermostats dating 15, 14 years ago, they lived on really, really old, and I'll give you sort of behind the scenes, like technical behind the scenes, incredibly old backends that had not been touched in years. Some of them written in languages that did not have, broad support in the ecosystem anymore. So it took a lot of work to upgrade as many devices as we could. And sometimes I think you just hit hurdles. And so that's maybe a little bit of the behind the scenes. Yeah. We are committed, I guess, maybe is the bigger takeaway from this whole thing.
That's good to hear.
Well, I would also say that, I am committed to sticking this out with you guys, because I have been on this journey with you since 2016, when I brought the first air freshener Google Home into, I'm sorry, we love to call it that. Okay. It's fun. But it's been a really interesting transition living with these. I have the old school devices and I have the new school devices, all the ones that are still, working in the ecosystem. I'm wondering, Anish,
so, fun fact for you, actually, Flo.
I'm sorry?
I was going to say, I'll give you a fun fact. On those older devices, I'm glad. Maybe the big thing is we completed a lot of the migrations to bring all those Nest devices into the Home app, and we're going to replace the Assistant with Gemini. That is like millions of lines of code that had to be rewritten. Just to give you a sense, like, people have often said, man, what's taking you so long bringing those Nest devices over? Or like, why can't you just replace the Assistant with Gemini? Because it's so easy, right? You just copy paste. But the behind the scenes is our engineering teams have rewritten multiple millions of lines of code to do that. So anyway, fun fact. I don't think we've shared that before, but there's a quick tidbit for you.
It actually works really well with what I was about to ask you, which is why, can you explain a little bit about why the transition the last few months has been? It's been kind of a challenge. Okay, I don't want to sugarcoat it. I'm still here, but the audience, the users, the long-term users, they want to know what's kind of been going on with you guys.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely fair. I went on Twitter maybe a month or two ago.
God bless you.
To apologize in a lot of ways. Listen, I think the reality is we are absolutely our own users. I've got a speaker in every home. I was in line to buy the first Google Home speaker in 2016. I didn't work on the team or on this product area yet, but I bought in, right? It was exciting. It was awesome. And I bought in. And we definitely feel the pain and the sort of frustration when we sort of took a pretty deep look at early last year. We were sort of looking at what the different sort of paths were technically for us to move forward. One path would have been, can you sort of band-aid the current assistant in sort of all the places where it was sort of breaking? Like, keep in mind, this is like a decade old technology, and we were sort of looking at where we're trying to go in the future, and what fundamentally users' expectations have changed, right? Like the advent of LLMs and Gemini and sort of their peer set, people's expectations of what you can do with an assistant have sort of evolved. And so as we looked at where we were in the past, where users were expecting us to go into the future, we had to make a pretty hard call on, do you go and sort of band-aid the somewhat limited last generation of AI and ML, or do you sort of go and build out for the future? Now, we ended up having to make a call to go and build out for the future. And now the thing that is connected to that was, well, what about the users that bought in, like you, 10 years ago? So that's where we also made another decision to say, hey, we've got to take every one of them on the journey with us. And so those are the two big decisions that we made. Now, it's taken us a while. LLMs are incredible at doing
it's a lot of work.
Creation, conversation. Like, what people love about Gemini is you can go and you can ask it all kinds of things and it'll respond. As an industry, the things that it weren't as good at is just like, when I turn my lights off, I needed to go off 10 times out of 10, right? Like, these predictable, simple actions need to happen. So there was a fair amount of work as we brought Gemini into the home to make it solve for the things that are unique about the home, right? It's communal, right? It has to work for me. It's got to work for my wife, my kids, my parents who visit, like people like sort of go in and out. It has to work with actions, right? Like play my music and my media, turn off my like lights, household coordination type stuff. So there's a fair amount of complexity, but that's a little bit of the behind the scenes of, completely understand, all the people's pain. And I don't have it's the sort of early access still rolling out. So it's a little bit of a, hey, we've got a solution. You're not going to get it quite yet, but it's coming like pretty soon. It's starting to roll out. So I'm just really asking our user base to give us just a little bit more time as we sort of roll it out. And asking you guys to trust us that, we're here and we're committed to getting it right. We will keep iterating.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned, I think it's a great thing that you're bringing along existing users of Google Home and Google Nest devices along with the transition to Gemini. But like, I've noticed, over time, over the many years, we used to just treat our Google Assistant devices as general chatbots. But over time, I feel like a lot of people kind of settled with basically treating them as glorified kitchen timers, as just alarm bots, and like occasionally checking the weather and things like that. Like, that's what people have kind of settled in their routine. But like over time, we've noticed, even those basic functionalities, people are complaining that, it's not they're not working nearly as well as they used to. But like with the transition to Gemini, you're adding on new capabilities that you weren't capable of doing before, like much more conversational queries, and even like able to natural language understand your smart home device commands. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, with this transition to Google Home, what can we expect from the way we interact with our existing devices on a basic level, like all those features that people have grown accustomed to? How will those functionalities change, or will they get better or not?
Yeah. We spent a lot of time talking about what is the future version of an assistant in your home look like. And one thing that was very straightforward for us very, very early on is it absolutely needed to be able to do all of the things that the assistant could do, right? People rely on these devices, and they have for like the last decade, for everything, like I mentioned, adjusting your thermostats or playing music and stuff like that. So all the basics had to be stuff that we could handle. And in fact, we had to re-architect a lot of the foundation of Google Home itself to live in this world of LLMs and with Gemini. So that's a big part of the investment that we had to make was in that. So the way that I think about it is, as we roll out Gemini for Home, it'll be able to do all of the sort of fundamentals, media, and media means, music and podcasts and all that good stuff, all the smart home control stuff that you're used to. And then obviously all of the household coordination, right? Like lists, timers, alarms, things like that. But what Gemini is going to really do is take all of those things. Like, Mishaal, think about your sort of experience today. I think what you're sort of alluding to is most of us over the last like X number of years, regardless of what assistant you were using, we've kind of all trained ourselves to say things in a very specific syntax, right? Like if you say the command in exactly the sequence of words, it'll probably work. That's kind of how all of us have sort of trained ourselves as users. I think what Gemini will do is it'll make all of those fundamentals work, but in a far more natural way, right? So you don't have to remember, it's not like formulaic. I have to remember the exact device name and say on and off or the exact sort of room and stuff like that. So I think Gemini is just going to give it a general upgrade in terms of its understanding. And then the intelligence is going to be, just a step function better, right? It's just going to be a lot smarter. So I think that's what you should expect. Now, these non-deterministic systems are not perfect, right? And so we are obviously testing it for 1 million use cases. And then, of course, people will find another million that we haven't. So that's a big part of why, for us, early access is key. We want to roll it out into the real world. There's so much testing you can do internally. You want to roll it out into the real world, let people sort of interact with it at scale. And our goal is to sort of iterate really quickly off of any feedback that people share with us. So that's kind of how we're thinking about that.
Anish, before I get into the next question, I just have to say, I'm really looking forward to Gemini being able to, because I've been having a lot of very emotional conversations with it. I would love to have it just be like, oh, you've had a hard day. Let me turn down the lights. Let me get your music on. Let me just help you out a little bit here. That's kind of what I'm foreseeing in the future, what I need. So just want to put that out there. Now, I would love a little clarity, though, around some of the features that might carry a monthly fee. Especially, Gemini integrations are coming. Nestaware is changing. I've already been paying for all that cloud storage for the security cameras, but now that subscription is going to unlock a couple more things for me. So I'm kind of interested, like, how do you decide what's going to be between a standard subscription versus the advanced one? And what criteria does a feature need to be considered to be a paid feature?
Yeah. To bring some simplicity to this, right? So we've had Nestaware for a while. It was predominantly a camera-centric service that gave you history. It was sort of the primary reason you would buy Nestaware is you want historical access to your cameras, and we had some two tiers that gave you different amounts of history. And so I think the big evolution as we go from Nestaware to Home Premium is really that Home Premium now is for the entire home. So it's for all the devices in your home. And the big thing that underpins that is intelligence, right? So Home Premium, I would think of very simply as Home Premium is about unlocking both what we had before, history, and intelligence in your home. Now, what that means is, if you were using our current version of our voice assistant on your speakers and displays, that same level of control remains there. It's free. It's included in your devices. When your devices get upgraded, you'll be able to say, "Hey G." I'm not going to say that, so I don't trigger everyone's devices.
Thank you.
Please
when
don't.
you say, "Hey," yeah. So when you say, "Hey G," instead of talking to the assistant, you'll talk to Gemini. And so that's included. That's for free. We'll go from there. Now, when you upgrade into Home Premium, you get sort of like an upgraded level of assistance. In the standard tier, you'll get the ability to talk to Gemini Live. And so Gemini Live, we think is super exciting, especially in a home context where you can have these sort of fluid discussions. It gets rid of the hot word. You can pause, you can interrupt, you can sort of go back and forth.
Emotional conversations. Yeah.
Those ones too. Yeah. It's super exciting. Like we've been at home, we've been using it for story time every night. When I put the kids down, we'll make up a story together. We'll turn off the lights, we'll lay down, and my daughter will say, make up a story about a princess who also is an engineer and they solve cool problems. And my son will go, but has a pet named Hammy, who's a hamster. And so we go through this exercise of doing making up a story together, but it's their story, and it's kind of cool. So anyway, Gemini Live is fascinating and awesome. So that level of intelligence is in the standard tier. There's a bunch of other goodness there, right? Being able to do things like natural language automation creation. Of course, you can always create automations yourself for free.
Yeah.
But if you were to just say, create an automation that makes me feel safer, Gemini now takes the work out of that, right? It'll say, what do you mean by safer? Okay, cool. Like I've got these devices. And so it'll take all of the, historically automation has been the world of like programmers and people who are hobbyists who want to go and do if this, then that, and add Boolean logic.
Guilty as charged. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it kind of makes it the domain of anybody. Just say what you want and it will create like that level of intelligence that gets upgraded. That's what will be in the standard tier. In the advanced tier, it gives you access to all the advanced camera features. So if you want to use Gemini for Home to, ask about something very specific, you can now search your entire camera history.
Okay.
You get a home brief, which summarizes hours of footage into like a summary because Gemini can do, semantic scene understanding of what your cameras are seeing. So lots of good stuff for free. When you upgrade to Home Premium, you get a bunch of intelligence in the standard tier. And then when you go into advanced, you get sort of a lot of camera intelligence in there. So that's maybe a simpler mental model.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I mean, I just like at the baseline, I just love how much more intelligent and conversational Gemini is. Like, my parents have always struggled formulating the proper way to talk to Google Assistant, and like it always says, "Oh, I don't understand," or like I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
And like even for me, like I still would have to take a couple of seconds to think, "Oh, how am I going to ask Google Assistant this question?" Versus with Gemini, I can just start rambling, right? Like when I was playing pickleball this weekend, I just started rambling because I didn't know exactly. I wanted to ask it a question about a rule, like a particular way to play it, to actually keep track of the score and stuff like that. And I just rambled, and it gave me the answer, which was really nice. But like the thing that I'm a little bit wary of, like when I'm using Gemini on my phone, it gives me the answer and it gives me like the source links, and like I can actually follow up and determine like, oh, okay, I can watch a video, I can see an image, I can read an article to like follow up with more details, because sometimes it might not give 100% accurate information. But if I'm using Gemini on a smart speaker, there's no way for me to follow up on that information. It's just going to say what it's going to say, and then I got to trust that it's going to be accurate. So I wanted to ask you a bit, like, are there any kind of additional guardrails when it comes to interacting with Gemini on a smart speaker versus a smart display on a smartphone? Like, are there any kind of things that you're doing there to make sure that, okay, the information on a smart speaker will be more accurate or like less, I guess, speculative than it might be on a smartphone or a display?
Sure. The short answer is yes. The longer, more sort of nuanced answer is that, it does depend on the surface, right? Because I think what you're pointing out is different surfaces. When I say surface, I mean different devices might have different nuances, right? Like if a device doesn't have a screen, that's different than a device that has a screen. So I think what you alluded to was obviously on a smart display. Obviously, there's attribution, right? So there's source attribution. We'll be able to do that. On a speaker, you will be able to access all of your voice interactions, the history of it in the Google Home app. And so we will be providing that source attribution in the Home app as well. So obviously, as sort of Google more broadly, we're spending a lot of time investing in making sure that, this is what Google does, right? Gives you access to sort of reliable information is our charter and our mission. So we're spending a lot of time with our broader teams making sure that the information is accurate. And then in the context of those interactions in the home, Mishaal, like there will be in both the Home app and on sort of any surfaces, you will have explicit attribution for what the sources of that information are. So yeah, those are a couple things that we're doing. Yeah, great question.
Great. You talked a little bit about the kids. I have a kid as well, and we do interact with these smart speakers in our homes. So does Jason's kids. Jason's one of our other hosts here, and we're always sort of like sharing stories back and forth. But the one thing that we've kind of all noticed is that the interactions on the home devices, they can be a little different than what we're doing with like the phone or the smartwatches. The smart speakers have to differentiate between who is talking, who's the kid, who's the parent, who's the main like owner of the account, right? That sort of thing. What have you done to ensure that the Gemini experience is kind of catered to a multi-user experience? Like, I want to say family, but it could also just be like a household of people who are all using this smart stuff, in tandem at the same time.
You're spot on, right? Like the fundamental premise of what we did is we're rolling out Gemini for Home. Gemini obviously on your phones and computers and other personal devices has been rolled out for some time. And it was really important for us when we sort of set out on this journey to make sure that it was, Gemini was something that worked in that communal environment, right? Because the home is sort of unique in a few different ways. One is it's communal. Two, it's just a lot more ambient, right? Like your phones are very sort of active engagements. You're sort of like, authenticated into it. Like you've put a PIN code or a password typically. It's hyper personal, right? Like you're having very personal conversations with Gemini on your phone. Whereas the home is typically it's a 8 or 10 foot experience. You're talking to a speaker from, across the room.
It's like public Google.
Exactly.
Public communal Google. Yeah.
100%, right? And you don't want, when you're having that interaction in the home, to mistakenly have, it respond with something very personal from you. So that's why it is sort of fundamentally distinct in that way. That could be for so many reasons. So it is distinct in that way, right? So when you're talking to Gemini for home, you're not talking to your personal version of Gemini. And so that's one very sort of important detail there. And a lot of the feedback that we got from early users as well internally as we were testing it. So communal had to be sort of ambient. And then the other big thing that we had to spend time on was like actions, right? Anyone and everyone needs to be able to turn on the lights and off the lights.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Which little kids can do, thankfully.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, Anish, so this whole time we've talked a whole bunch about devices, both old and new, as well as Gemini, but we haven't really talked much about the new Google Home app experience.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to close off this interview by asking you, what are your favorite changes or additions to the Google Home app?
Yeah, I'm actually curious. What do you think? You've used the app a lot. Have you got the new changes yet, or?
Yes, I do have the new app, and I do love the new UI, like the tabbed UI, and I like that, when I'm accessing it through my lock screen shortcut or like the quick settings, it also has that UI, so it's like it's very handy being able to switch between those views, and it does feel smoother. Like I know you guys mentioned that you improved the startup experience, reduced the bugs, so I like overall just the overall look and feel and the stability of the app so far.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of my favorite things, right? Maybe the part that I'm most excited about, myself and our teams read all of the feedback, right? So we are on our community, we're sort of in the dredges of Reddit, in the comment sections of all of you guys' publications. We read the feedback, we know the feedback. We've been sort of trying to iterate our way to respond to as much of that feedback as possible. So I think the before I talk about any new features, maybe my top thing that I'm most excited about with the app is the app itself is far more performant, right? Like we spent a lot of time thinking about performance. That was sort of one of the big things that people have told us was like, hey, we just need the app to be really, really rock solid. It's a journey, right? Like it's not a we're done kind of thing. So it should feel a lot faster. It should crash a lot less. The camera experience is a lot smoother. It loads a lot quicker. So we're going to continue to invest there. That part's exciting. But performance was a huge one. The second big thing was, our Nest users have told us for the longest time they wanted a single app experience. And we have been working on this. This has been a multi-year commitment. I know it's taken us a while. I apologize, but the big news for them is that we're done, right? So
I finally moved them too, Anish. I was holding out for a while. I was like, not moving them yet. And then I finally moved them, and it is a lot smoother.
I had everything except for the temperature scheduling until a couple of weeks ago. That finally was migrated over.
Temperature schedule for us here in the US. I think for our European friends, I think they were holding out for things like hot water on their thermostats. We brought that over to locks now have passcode management, which is a big thing. If you had our Nest Protects, people wanted like emergency notifications. So going back to your earlier question about trust, like I know it's taken us a while, but we have been committed to doing this. We've been working on it for a while. Like I said, it's complex, of course, but that's a sign of for us, that's a sign of our commitment to have moved every device over from 2015 onwards or so. So we're excited. We're done. So with those two things being done, the next question was, okay, well, now can we dramatically simplify the app? right? And so a lot of the redesign, a lot of the things that people will feel, in addition to performance and having access to the devices, is it's simpler. It's fewer tabs. There's subtle things like you can use gestures to swipe between. When you're on the home tab with a single hand now, you can sort of swipe between your favorites to go to all your devices. The activity tab now has all of the history of your home, not just a few of the first party Nest devices, right? So if you've added any of the millions and millions of partner devices that are in our ecosystem, that activity tab now has that whole history. That's pretty cool. And then, of course, automations, we've made it a lot easier, a lot simpler. It's a lot more powerful. There's a carousel that shows you what's about to happen. Like, by the way, this is a funny thing. I work on this team. I lead it in so many ways. My wife has never created an automation once, like not once, right? And it's just because like that's not her thing. And then the other day, I was sort of looking through it, and I saw that there was an automation that I had not created, and I was confused. And she had used Ask Home, and I pulled out her phone, and I was having her show it to me, and she just asked in like normal language, like, I was traveling, and she said, make me safer. And she had a little bit of a back and forth, and it created an automation that would modulate lights when no one was home to make it look like someone was home. Mm-hmm. She would never have done that in the past. And so that's maybe one of my favorite things is now smart home automations, which used to be this like pretty niche power user type thing, really, really powerful, is now something that like anybody can use. I think that's really exciting. So now. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about, I guess. Hard to pick a particular one.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Ask Home to roll out. I'm still waiting on it to hit my device. Like I got the new UI, the new icon, but I've been checking like every couple hours. I'm asking something in Ask Home, and it says, "Oh, Ask Home is not available for your home yet." So
coming soon.
Waiting for it to roll out.
It's a rollout, so it's gonna take a few days and weeks for us to get to everybody, but we'll be there soon.
Meanwhile, I don't want anybody to figure out anything because all the automations are based on the location of my phone. So when I leave, everybody's life is ruined. But that's a me thing. That's a my family thing. Don't tell them about Ask Home. I'm not going to tell them. I'm sorry. I might keep it from them. Anish, thank you so much for your time today. It was really good to just sit and chat about like what's changing, what's coming. I know this is just sort of the beginning of this journey for Google. And so, I really appreciate you kind of letting us know what we can expect this season as we're all kind of reconfiguring our smart homes. And, like you were saying, things felt stagnant for a while, but now it feels like, oh, I need to care again.
Yeah.
My devices. So
the home is very much back. But yeah, like, I think of, for us, October, like this moment was obviously a lot of work to get here. But it's just like one moment on this journey, right? Like I think the new sort of normal for us that you should expect is that, that we're releasing a lot more often, right? So every few weeks, every month, you should expect updates. And I think that's really the thing that, going back to your question about trust in my mind, like I can say a lot of words, that doesn't matter. Like I think people will regain trust by just seeing what we do. And so that's our biggest commitment is just, you'll just see us rolling out improvements, responding to feedback, and continue to drive sort of step function change with intelligence. Like that to me is the sort of best proof of, should you trust and commit to our ecosystem again.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great Friday.